everyone. Welcome to Manufacturing Hub. Really excited. We've got Derek and Cy on. We'll go ahead and introduce those guys in just a moment. This is episode 182. If you guys have been here before, welcome. If you have not been here, yeah. Well, let me start over. If you guys have been here before, welcome. If you guys haven't been here before, welcome back. You know what? I'm just gonna skip over that part because apparently I have not drank enough caffeine at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday to get my own opening line correct. Having said that, Vlad and I have got a fun conversation this week. We are putting out our Ignition Community Conference conversations on Mondays, so go ahead and check those, check the replays. I think we'll have another one coming out this Monday, but we've got some expected and unexpected travel. And if you guys are listening on podcast form, you could see Vlad's eyes look of, oh, yes, we might have something that comes out on Monday. I have plenty of time to go figure out all of that stuff. So for our podcast listeners, you guys have that. But we've got those coming out on Monday. We've got David Turner in the chat. How's it going, David? If I had remembered David Turner's episode, I would go ahead and mention it. But David has joined us here on Manufacturing Hub in the past for an awesome conversation, of which I am fully expecting this to continue. A couple of housekeeping notes. I believe we'll have an ICC conversation come out on Monday this week for episode 183. We are off next Wednesday. It's my birthday, and Vlad has committed himself to go work a downtime, which, I mean, I've got so many thoughts, Vlad. I'm going to enjoy my day off for my birthday, and I hope you enjoy however many hours of unexpected, unplanned downtime and come back with some good stories for the following week. And then at the end of October, the 23rd and the 30th, we are going to have a short OT ICS cybersecurity theme, which should be very exciting. And honestly, Vlad is shockingly excited for that. You literally holding him back to go ask ICS cybersecurity questions. Having said that, one last comment. If you guys are live in the chat, as you saw with David, please go say hi. Tell us where you're at. Tell us where you're at, what's going on. We have made the connection, so we should be able to see all of those. Feel free to ask questions for myself or Vlad or Derek or Cy. Having said that, everyone officially welcome to Manufacturing Hub, episode 182. We have Derek Harrison and Cy Sprouse on from Seekers Technical. That's where we've gone, right, guys? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up for that. Derek, Cy, welcome to the show. Thank you guys for being here.
Excited to be here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. I do want to give you an opportunity. There was an interesting question being discussed before the show.
Oh, my special question?
Yes.
Your special question.
Okay,
I'm sorry. We're all very worried.
Yes. I'm sorry to derail it, but I was a bit concerned, Dave, when I saw your profile banner. It said best beard in manufacturing. And
yeah.
I felt like
let me sit up so everyone can see the full beard. Let me back up a little bit.
So my question
yes,
is,
please go ahead and ask the question.
So my question is, how does one get nominated for best beard in manufacturing?
It's yes. I've got my own beard logo. I've got my own beard logo as well. I don't believe that there are official manufacturing beard games. I don't think we've got bracketology going. Vlad has a bunch of extra time coming up, so maybe Vlad will hook us up with a beard bracketology. That could just be his social media for the entire month of, I don't know, November or December, something along those lines. But if you guys are in the chat, go ahead and drop us some comments if Vlad needs to go put together a beard bracketology, and we'll give Derek the opportunity to get knocked out in the second round this year.
Hey, maybe there's going to be some kind of a poll down the road where, everyone from the industry will get a chance to vote. But look, that's
what I'm thinking. I don't know. I just feel worried.
Maybe it's a pitch for Automate 2025. You know what I mean? Judge your favorite beard in manufacturing. We'll make that as
beards and automation.
Gentlemen, but besides the great beards, we do want to get an introduction How did you get started in manufacturing slash industrial automation? What have been your, I guess, career trajectories, and ultimately, what are you doing today?
Great question. Well, I so happened to land in this industry out of curiosity. I started off early as an operator, worked a good bit for Honda, and wanted to figure out how all the robotics and presses, and I wanted to learn everything that there was to it. And curiosity never stopped. From then, I've had a lot of great mentors, had a lot of great opportunities, and my curiosity, as you know, in this world of things, there is a lot to learn, a lot to figure out, and it's so fun when it works. Um, uh, and that's essentially what started that. And as far as the business, it was really out of a necessity to try to create something, and we were looking to create something that is um, that would serve a good purpose for our industry, utilizing the expertise we've gained over the years. And recruiting seemed like the best low hanging fruit that we felt we could make the most impact for. So we started off there with longer term aspirations to eventually start an engineering firm out of that quote unquote capital. So, and like you said earlier, I think Dave, uh, you kind of it's in our blood, so we can't escape from can't escape from it.
Sai, how about you?
Hey, hey, I'm Sai. I'm the director of engineering and co-owner of Seekers. I'm the newest addition as we transition from the recruiting phase into more of a supplemental engineering firm. Um, I actually started. I originally wanted to get into electronics engineering, specifically RF engineering. That's what I was going to college for, and I didn't even know what a PLC was until halfway through my college term. But as I learned more and more about it, and uh, with the programming and the electrical design of panels and everything, uh, kind of grew more interested in it. Still really wanted to do RF engineering, but the job market was just way better when it comes to automation in the U.S. So I ended up going that route, and haven't looked back since. With an electronics engineering and RF engineering degree, I was able to kind of get my foot in the door as an entry level controls engineer, and yeah, through that, I've been in automotive, grain handling, paint finishing, a lot of MHE warehouse distribution sort of centers, and a bunch of smaller niche things in between. But yeah. So.
Gotcha. Gentlemen, a couple of questions, I guess, for the two of you. So, Derek, you mentioned, going from operator to, a maybe self-taught engineer. I'm
Mhm.
curious, how did you approach learning maybe some of the technologies and even picking a path, right? Because I know you can make an entire career out of PLCs, robotics, SCADA
Mhm.
systems, right? Like, how did you decide maybe on what to focus on, or was it, just learning everything that was available? You mentioned Honda, or maybe at some of the factories you worked at. Like, how did you maybe select which path to go down to?
I think selection was really more about a way of it's similar when people try to transition careers. It's better to um, I'm a loss for words, but to leverage the experience they already have, compound their experience. Um, and so a lot of things just kind of fall in line with that. So, one thing leads to the other and it compounds, I guess, the value of your experience. And so the path really was mostly at a necessity. What did I need to learn for this, for this, for this? And then the path was really like what was available opportunity wise, whether through mentorship, training, opportunity to actually have the freedom to work on stuff and make mistakes. with good mentors um, and so the path really was I would say it's kind of a hybrid between directed versus falling into what you're good at, what you're natural at. If you have like a natural ability to lead, to bring people together, to solve problems, I think that drives a lot of things, and it follows that technological path or whatever you want to call it. I would say that's kind of how it formed.
Let me ask like one more follow up on that side, which is, you've mentioned mentors, right? And I think that a lot of, at least speaking for myself, a lot of younger engineers or early career engineers sort of try to tackle everything on their own and sort of fall into the, I want to say, the problem of, spending a lot of time trying to learn something on their own where they could have, let's say, spent, even if it's a couple of grand on a mentor or on a course or
Yes.
on whatever. So I'm curious, maybe how did you approach like learning at that time, and maybe any ideas on how to find good mentors for someone who might be looking in the early career?
Yeah, that's a good question. And first thing I'll say is do not go out on your own. I mean, it, there's a wealth pool of just knowledge uh, that's just trapped. You have all the stuff that there is to know versus or what you could know versus what you need to know, and real consultants, real experts, real professionals that have just that type of experience, they have all that you need to know, and it's worth going to them than wasting your time messing around in all this different areas. I'm sure you've seen that. So the value of somebody with exact expertise on what you want to learn is just it's priceless. And with that said, you said paying. When I started the recruiting business, I really didn't know anything that I was doing. I knew what I knew, and that's one thing. But you don't want to operate in a vacuum. But I put such a high value on mentorship and learning things. I ended up contracting a couple consultants with a huge budget to teach me everything that I didn't know, because I wanted to learn everything, and I didn't put a price on it, and it helped me tremendously starting off.
Really interesting. Sai, and I guess like Derek, I don't have many questions on that side, but I do want to make sure we progress into the actual topics. Sai, on your side, and I find it really interesting because I also studied electronics, right? And I didn't know what PLCs were until I got hired by Procter and Gamble way out of school, right? So I was not taught anything on the industrial automation side in school. It was all about formulas, PCB designs, electronics. So I'm, you know, speaking again for myself, I was sold by walking onto the production floor and seeing all the machinery operate, and I could relate back to, when I was younger, watching the how it's made videos. But I'm curious, maybe you've mentioned that for you, there were like more jobs in that space, but were there any like other factors that maybe were interesting more in manufacturing and controls versus like electronics that swayed you?
The programming aspect of it definitely swayed me. So I've always been pretty good at electronics troubleshooting, and then I think the first programming language I learned was C++ back in my freshman year of high school. So I had both sides of that, which is obviously very beneficial. But also, I think a lot of programming can be pretty boring. So when you're programming things that are actually moving and doing something and creating a product, it's much more exciting to me. So that was another thing that really got me into it. So there's that, and then also I kind of knew the right people at the right time as I was getting close to graduating, and it was. I was a little nervous about going into it at the beginning, but yeah, I'm really glad that I did. And since at least I did learn what a PLC was while I was still in college, I did get to learn a little ladder logic, and I was like, okay, I can do this. I already knew some scripting languages, and it's different, but similar enough that the thought process through a sequence of events happening is similar enough that I was comfortable enough to say, like, yeah, I think I can do this. So I just went with it.
Awesome. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I
Dave,
think
you
you're
are muted.
muted, Doug.
There I am. I muted myself. Sorry about that, guys. I am just the worst podcaster so far today in the first 15 minutes of the show. Having said that, I think it's really interesting. It's always really interesting to listen to how different people came to the technical side. I feel between Derek of coming up as an operator and Cy going into a completely different part of engineering and then finding PLCs and then kind of your path, but both really interesting in the fact that you guys are sitting there next to each other today. Can you tell us a little bit more? I want to dive into how some very technical guys decided to go into recruiting and maybe some lessons that you learned while going through that process. And I guess I want you to take us through that process because then I want to know and talk more about what you guys are doing now. But I feel like it's a really interesting middle step. And I'll tell the short story. So the first time we met Derek and Cy was a couple of years ago at Automate. And I think Derek and I were sitting next to each other at happy hour, and he was telling me about the technical work that he has done in the past and how he decided to become a recruiter. And I remember thinking to myself, that's really interesting. I will never forget this. I am extremely interested to see how this goes because it feels like a hard left on the normal path that people had. So can you tell the listeners maybe a little bit more about going and making that decision, and then from the point of making the decision, some of the lessons learned, and you talked about working with different groups to kind of fully understand it, and maybe your perspective of what the recruiting and or technical resource landscape looks like.
That's a big question. I could talk on that. I could reply to this for a long time. I could create a whole soap opera series out of it. But it's I would say, like, as I mentioned before, to me, recruiting is low overhead. It's a huge problem in our industry. And to me, I still think this today. It's one of the most foundational needs that have to be right for companies. And it needs the utmost attention to detail because people, I don't care what products you have. I don't care what ideas you have. I really could care less. It does not matter if you don't have the right people in the seat. And I've saw that firsthand throughout my career, and it's really ugly. And I've seen the industry. I think I made a meme like with a Trojan horse going into the walls. And really what I've seen a lot, unfortunately, is just bad hires coming into companies and just destroying them from the inside out. And that really, really immensely bothered me. And I wanted to do something about it. I knew there was a way to engineer my way out of that, to figure that out and to solve it. So one huge issue, huge need for it to be solved in the best way possible. And then three, it's low hanging fruit. I felt like starting a business, not knowing anything business wise, I felt like that was the best ground to get my feet wet versus being, knee deep in a project on site during downtime, getting it handed to me. So I wanted to hammer out, sales, operations, tax, all that stuff in a safer, lower risk environment.
Absolutely.
If
Go
I
ahead,
can
Vlad.
throw in like a question on that side, right? So I've certainly had the opportunity to interview and hire people for different engineering and technician roles. But I guess I'm curious, what's the biggest challenge? Is it usually a technical fit into those roles, or is it more of like a cultural fit? You mentioned that there were maybe like bad hires brought into companies. Like, what's the true root cause when it comes to those, I guess, bad fits?
I would say me and you and Dave, we could sit down and figure it out pretty easily. The root cause is really a systematic cause with hiring process, I believe, in general. I think you could come up with a methodology, Dave could, and it would be great. I think the failure really lies in how they set up. Companies deprioritize their hiring process. It's just something that happens. And guess what? Anybody can post an Indeed ad. Anybody can put advertisement on LinkedIn, whatever. And it's just one of those do it yourself, figure it out on the back burner, low priority items. And that bites people so bad because, or they'll try to hire 15 contingency recruiters thinking more volume equals better versus hiring like a technical specialist like Jordan Humphreys, et cetera, that they think, I think that's really what hurts our industry a lot is just hiring a huge turn and burn firm and just letting it come in, or just having a hands-off approach or minimal hands-off approach and letting HR handle the whole thing, but not doing it in sync with the technical authorities within the company. So the technical requirements, that a lot of that can be worked over. Of course, you have to have some type of foundational technical requirements. But I think cultural fit would probably be the biggest emphasis. And frankly, if you're not in it, if you don't understand it from the trenches, you're not able to give that that cultural assessment of that person. You know what the persona of a controls engineer you want on site with you. You know that point and blank. But
I also don't want to sit through a bunch of screens with a lot of those administrative
that
tasks.
doesn't solve it either.
Yes.
No, that exacerbates the issue. They think that they can form some type of ridiculous process to weed out and filter, and if that doesn't, it should be lightning fast, made with good insights by good people, which goes back to point number one.
Dave?
Absolutely. No, I agree. How, I guess we set ourselves up for the questions, Derek. So how does one go through and screen for a cultural fit? I feel like most groups hopefully know what's important. And I feel like lots of people know technically what a good person is, and fairly quickly if they're going to, maybe not if they're going to fit in well, but you certainly know the people who aren't going to fit in well the vast majority of the time. So if you have your recruiter cap on, what is the conversation you have with your end users or your systems integrators about this is the importance of cultural fit? These are our suggestions of questions or conversations to have, or things to make sure of before you go place that hiring offer.
Yeah, I would lead on a big emphasis of people know, like good people know good people. And I would really rely on that, and being able to bring in your higher decision maker authorities into the conversation. And I mean, from the owner, maybe a level or two down max into these critical, no matter what the position is, bring them into the conversation, because they should know what they're looking for. They should know what they expect of the company. And just ensuring that they have like proper references. I would really look at it as like, if you should hire somebody as if you're hiring them for your own company, as if your dollar's going to them, as if you have to sustain their family, as if you're going to depend on them to make you succeed or not succeed. And I know there's people at different levels. Not everybody is like S tier, and that's fine. But really, you should be making these decisions as if your company is on the line, and really the people that make those decisions should be a part of that conversation. I think a lot of it just flies under the radar. They hire some random recruiting company. We got the 3 references. We got this. He put, Alan Bradley on his profile, or he worked with, XYZ. He looks cool. He talks a good show, but but then you find out he's extremely, if you can't, who's sorting and sniffing out this talent, these people? Who is it? It really should be, I'd imagine the decision makers in the company higher up. And of course involve the hiring managers, like even like your controls managers, project director of project management, et cetera. the people that are
Absolutely.
going to be working.
No, I think all those are really good. We could probably ask a ton more questions with recruiting cap on, but that's not what
Mm.
we're here for. I do want to ask one last question to you, Derek.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned calling references. What percentage of the people that you work with do you think actually call references when they are looking to hire folks on the technical side, or just kind of in your experience with recruiting? Is it a large majority of people are actually calling references, or is it a relatively small percentage of folks are calling references?
I honestly, it really depends on the company's hiring process. I noticed that the more people that are closer to the dollar amount, the
Yep.
more that becomes a concern. However,
Okay.
at the same time, when you know, so it's like, why drag out so some people just, they're good at making decisions like that. So, I really don't know the split per se.
Absolutely. And I super appreciate that. I guess I want to go transition us over into Seekers Technical, what you and Sai are currently doing now. But before we talk about some of the interesting technologies and projects and other things, can you walk us through how you decided to make the transition back to being the guys in the trenches on the technical side of things? Did you decide you really hate air conditioning in the summer? That all your work clothes were too clean?
Yeah.
What was that process? Can you walk us through that, please?
I'd say it probably goes back to the second question of the second part of the previous question,
Yeah.
lessons learned. One thing I wrote is that, and I've had this conversation with Tucker Devine, if he's watching, plenty of times, but and my other recruiting friends, you cannot engineer your way out of recruiting. And what you mentioned earlier, like you were like, ooh, that was the perfect reaction. That is exactly how you should react to it. If an engineer's like, I'm going to go fix recruiting, that is the absolute best reaction, because really what it boils down to is, yeah, you have your certain set of technologies, et cetera, your certain workflows. But at the end of the day, to me, I was very good at vetting out talent, putting up these processes, doing the work, very successful in that. But at the end of the day, it's really, and I'm sorry, my recruiting friends, but it is really like banging your head against a concrete wall. And how often can you do it, and how quickly can you do it? There's no way around it. That it's just about just dealing with what's the word? Dealing with the loose ends that people, I call it, I don't know, probably improper term, but people inventory, people assets. It's not something you can just move, turn high or low. It is uncontrollable and all over the place. But there's a lot of frustration involved in it, and you just got to just attack it with volume. But I'm sorry, the original question was, what was the original question, Dave? Apologies.
No, it's not a problem, Derek. The original question was kind of walk us through the transition away from recruiting and back into technical.
Got it.
What was that thought process? What kind of made you decide to jump back in?
Yeah.
Kind of take us through that process, please.
So, and the reason I brought up the prior was to create a good segue, our foundation. But essentially, as we mentioned before, we've always wanted to do engineering firm, and in some sort of sense, we do all kinds of side projects. We're always wrapped up in stuff, and we've always wanted to do this. So this was our long-term goal, and really recruiting was an ends to a means to us. So the transition we thought would be a little bit later down the road, but opportunity came up where it made more sense to do it sooner than later, and so we jumped on it, and we're extremely happy that we have, because I'm I don't enjoy smacking my head against the wall, even if I can be pretty decent at it.
No, I appreciate that. Vlad, should I let you ask some questions? I feel like I've done the thing where I've just stolen the
Yeah,
conversation for 15 minutes.
sure. So, gentlemen, curious, I guess, on what it is, I guess, specifically that you provide today. Maybe what technologies are you guys focused on? What kind of customers do you serve? Like, what has the pivot been on the technical side?
So the pivot, which is again our long-term aspirations, is to we've seen a lot of like AAA integrators, um, and they serve a great purpose. We wanted to fill the gap below that level, like the small to mid-sized businesses. We really enjoy working with them, and we wanted to create some pretty uh, easy, low barrier to entry type solutions. So we're really interested in that area, and that's got us excited to just help out the average small to mid-sized business. We've had aspirations to solve those problems for people, and we think a better way where they wouldn't need an insane like 500 divert shoe sorter, um, like at the F-22 of sortation, with something maybe simple that aligns better with their budget with great efficiency, or that's kind of where we wanted to fit in. Um, and as far as the tech, did I answer the question properly, you think?
Yeah, and also really assisting those AAA integrators with any sort of supplemental engineering as we can. So both sides of that. Obviously, we're a very small firm, but I've seen working with the big firms all the time, several projects that they don't quite have the manpower to push a project through and meet those deadlines. So really want to help them out as much as we can too when they find themselves in that sort of situation. But yeah, outside that.
As a follow-up, I guess, I think that the general industry, right, would label that as either digital transformation, IoT, Industry 4.0, and all sorts of different, I think, like conversations are happening in those spaces throughout the entire, let's call it manufacturing stack, right? From the sensors to the PLCs, HMI, SCADA, MES, ERP. I may be curious what you're seeing in that specific market, and maybe where do you see maybe interesting opportunities today to tackle, right? Like, is it on the hardware side, on the software side, all of the above? Is it, again, more specifically on the controllers on the plant floor, or is it higher up, right, on the ERP system? So I'm just curious what you're seeing, what you're working on there.
You want
Sure.
to hack
Yeah.
it? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, technology, I guess, hardware side. If this, if that will count as digital transformation, I guess I'll take the easy out there. Um, I'm really excited personally about all of the ASRS systems that we're seeing developed, the automatic storage and retrieval systems, giving how they become more and more efficient, giving customers that verticality. They can create the same solutions in a very compact footprint. There's some exciting technologies coming out from. You have Reputa, of course, and Urbex and Gebhardt. Those sort of ASRS, very vertical conveyance solutions and storage solutions. I think that's where the industry is going. Is up more vertical, and you can make something much more efficient in a much smaller footprint. So that's what I am specifically keeping my eye on. It can be tough at times trying to convince people of that because a lot of that is newer and budding technology that hasn't been totally proven out in the field yet. But that's what I'm personally watching.
Matter of fact, I'll put this right here. Is go look at Reputa's ASRS.
Yeah.
Right, just go look that up. That is absolutely everything we're just talking about. They're stacking together some hard plastics, small like easy to build effective ASRS solution. I haven't seen anything in the industry like that, and it's coming to American market. And that to us is just incredible, because it doesn't exist from other providers that we've seen. When you compare it to some of the traditional like shuttle systems, or whatever you name it, it's and it goes back to that low barrier to entry type of subject.
Yeah, that's ASRS specifically that I'm most excited about. And then I guess on the software side, a cop-out answer would be AI. Obviously, that's changing everything. Yeah, I don't know. There's no telling where that's going to go. As far as helping out with design, or writing entire programs, or handling all your data, databasing, it's it's pretty incredible, scary stuff, but obviously something else to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So Dave and I have been to multiple, trade shows where we've tried some, I want to say, like early-ish prototypes of at least, code generators for the industrial automation space. I know that in traditional software, I think there's been studies where it improves, I think it's a software engineer's performance up to like 40%. There was a study, if I'm not mistaken, it was like GitLab and Microsoft together, something like that. But again, curious maybe what you guys are seeing in the automation space, because quite frankly, like my opinion is, I think that everyone should be experimenting with things, but it's not as applicable to, let's say, like ladder logic, for example, or even, like diagrams. I think like images and such are still not as easily, or I guess like not as easy to work with. So I'm curious, where do you see maybe those opportunities in the short and long term?
Currently, and yeah, I can definitely be a case study for that. More efficient inefficiency, that uptick in efficiency. But I've been very surprised with the different types of software that it knows really well. For example, Ignition, or just programming languages in general. So if you're developing in SCADA, obviously you'll be using programming languages, and as well as your SQL queries and everything. And it seems to be great at that, and coming up with some more of the complex formulas. Not to get too deep into it, but I had to come up with a formula for basically positioning a laser, because it didn't move exactly on a zero axis. It kind of moved like in a concave shape. And I needed a formula for that, for putting into a program, and it worked first try. So it's pretty incredible how it can help you with your efficiency in that way. Really knock things out that you would have otherwise spent hours on. So that's one area that I've been utilizing it a lot. So
it's really interesting. If I may, like, let me give a brief side note, Derek, to that. I think it would be good for, I want to say, our space to have some of these like case studies, even though they may not. It's not a full kind of white paper that you would put out, but just like a one pager. Hey, I'm sorry, this is what I'm using AI for. Like, it helped me solve like this specific problem. I think it would be super
That's
interesting
smart.
as like shareable content, because I think all of us are doing our own things and are trying
Yeah,
things and probably failing more than succeeding. But it'd be cool to see like practical like applications, right? And I probably will not be positioning lasers, but it certainly, I think, will be relevant to someone. So I think it's super interesting.
Speaking of which, I agree with what you're saying, Vlad. A couple things I'll say on AI is companies should not expect it to be a silver bullet, and they shouldn't expect it to be autonomous beyond actual competency, and they shouldn't expect it to have a full level of competency, especially in intricate subjects like we deal with every day. It's only as good as the knowledge base it has access to. With that said, harnessing it as a side by side to yourself, or a reference or to take care of some of that, encoding that, just to make it, I guess, a more generalized statement. I mean, if you think about, I need to build a list, and rather than creating 1, 6, 15, and then tagging it, you just have AI, you just prompt it properly, and it saves you an hour of writing a bunch of nonsense when you could be working on the actual concepts and thinking, and just use it to do a lot of the legwork. And I think in programming, that's what's great about it, is you can use it as a legwork, to do the majority of this easy low hanging fruit legwork, to check code, to see what's wrong, to multiply whatever you just did. But then as far as a use case, we've been using it for a lot. And in recruiting, funny enough, I plan to actually show this and share it with the community. I've built AI that it essentially looks at, it has your resume and your profile. It has everything it needs to know about you. And you essentially, as you're skimming through LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever, and rather than reading all these crazy criteria, because you do have to submit a good bit of volume of applications, you submit it to AI. It sends you out the way I told it to format it, how likely of a match you are, what gaps you have, what your strengths are, how do you leverage that. You can ask it additional follow-up questions like how to interview for prep interview. If they ask you these questions, you're like, I don't feel like I'm filling out a ton of applications, I don't feel like answering this. You can ask it questions, and have it help you do that. So it's like a super weapon for doing a ton of applications. And I think a lot of people don't think of using it that way. They just going back to the silver bullet, they go, make my resume, create a cover letter. Like, they do stuff like that. And it just,
I think it's a dangerous tool, right? And the reason why I say that is I've talked to many like engineering managers and directors in the IT space, and due to the, I want to say, like, more remote nature of those jobs, what they've seen is, again, so many AI generated applications would just apply, and it's to the extent that, the person that you've hired, it's not even that person that shows up the day
Oh,
that
wow.
job started, right? So it's like, people, and there's actually like articles on this. And again, obviously, I'm not saying this could be applicable specifically to manufacturing, because a lot of times we need to show up, but for roles on SCADA, MES, ERP, that could be debatable. So what people have done is, they've essentially, let's say, utilized the tool like you've described, funneled 10 people from overseas into jobs, and then they become like the manager that sort of pulls the strings and earn 10 salaries, which, again, maybe kudos to their ability to do that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, now it's like AI applying to jobs where like AI parses your resume, and it's like just like AI kind of interlinking everything, which
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
again is
yeah.
interesting.
And it goes back to that failure point, like I would mention way before, like way upstream with the people closest to the money not being involved, because what's common in recruiting is you just have an ATS where they match it, like how
Yep.
closely are the keywords matched to the job description, and you have a lazy recruiter or one that doesn't know the industry or doesn't actually take the time to figure it out. Well, these are the matches, this, and then you have a incompetent hiring manager or somebody that doesn't need to be involved making those decisions, hires that person because they just go off of, like you said, the AI versus AI conversation handoff there. It's going to make
Yeah.
things worse
It's gonna be interesting. Dave,
if
what are
they
your thoughts?
don't fix their workflow.
I think all of this is interesting. I want to go take us away maybe from the less tangible AI conversations, because I know we could spend a bunch of hours on that, and talk
Yeah.
maybe more about the tangible, what you guys are seeing out there on the plant floor, what excites you. Is there any kind of specific pieces of technology or opportunities that have brought seekers back to a technical firm? And I kind of want to open it up to get your thoughts and views on what you're seeing. On what you're seeing out there.
You want us to take the first stab at that?
Outside of outside the ASRS technology that I've mentioned, I think one of the things, if you've been to the expos over the last few years, one thing that's blown up obviously is AMRs. That seems to get a lot of people excited how they can use those to improve the procedures in their facilities. But outside of those two things, and it's just been for me good old fashioned robotic arms and conveyors, but and ignition, I guess. But yeah, so I guess I'm kind of boring and sticking to what I know and not branching out too much. But
you got all the stuff in database. I remember like what last year, like everybody was a WCS or WES at one point. Like that was a huge bulk, whereas AMR was flooding the market. Then it turned into, well, what are we doing with the data?
Yeah, and I also got an opportunity over the last year and a half at the position I was in before joining Seekers and helping take Seekers in this newer direction to help develop some of the WES and WMS. And then obviously since I was already proficient on the WCS side, it was a great learning experience to kind of see how the sausage is made on the other side, because normally to a controls engineer, you're just like shooting a TCP/IP socket string out into the ether, and then it's coming back with magical instructions and everything. So it was awesome to get that experience as well. So
absolutely. Let me follow up with that to you, Sai. Do you do a lot of robotics work as Seekers, or is Seekers looking to do a bunch of robotics work, be it robotic arms or any other type of robotics?
Yes, absolutely. Our eyes are especially on the ASRS and the AMRs. And we do have a partnership with Reputa Robotics as well, as they're entering the American market. So
and 5-axis stuff too. So.
Yes, yeah, and 5-axis. But so yeah, especially the technologies that they already have, seeing where we can implement those to help out clients. But obviously, we are open to anything. We both have previous experience with. For me, it's just Fanuc as far as robotic arms. So I'm a one-note joke there, but he's more the robotic arm guy on that end. So, but yes,
the robotic space,
anything.
it's super interesting, right? No. It's all good. Like the robotic space is super interesting. I've certainly done like integrations of data into robotic cells, but I know there's such a, I guess, increase in, as you mentioned, how many new vendors and I guess flavors of robots are coming to North America, and I'm assuming in Europe markets as well. Just like I'm assuming everybody else here have seen a lot of humanoids, or I guess like different manufacturing robots. And you mentioned like AMRs, but I think there's a lot more to it than that. We had many conversations where it's AMRs with arms on top of them, with vision systems that can do, I guess, things that have not necessarily been as easy to do in the past. So I think the robotic space is only going to continue to evolve, but also I think it's going to be more accessible, right? Because the pressure from all these vendors to innovate, but also to compete with each other, ultimately drives down the price for the end user. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with ROS, but I'm sure you heard it used a lot when it comes to robotics. I started my own personal ROS 2 little project, just a little AMR guy that has LiDAR and vision that just drives around, and just learning the robot operating system, the intricacies of of how everything goes together. Programming wise has been great, and it also gave me an excuse to learn a little bit more 3D CAD work and all that. So it's been a fun project. But yeah, it's with that software, I think it's I need to know. I wish I knew more about what main companies are using to develop their robotic software. But with that, you can do, drones, AMRs, arms, 6-axis arms, and everything. So, and the more and more you go down that rabbit hole and look into which companies are using it, it's being used pretty much everywhere, even Boston Dynamics. So it's
Let me
it's
let me ask
it's
you,
an
Sai.
interesting list if you go through their clients list.
Let me ask you a question on that side, Sai. So I guess Dave and I were introduced to Ross by Chris Savoya from UR, and I believe that was like over 6 months ago. And anyways, like Chris
Hmm.
mentioned, that Ross is a very interesting platform. My understanding, and I've not gone hands on with it just because I have so many other projects in the automation space. But I did go to a local meetup where I guess my understanding is that it's an open source platform that can be used to create any kind of robot in a very general sense. But could you maybe provide like an overview for those who are not familiar, either listening in or watching us right now? What does it actually allow you to build? And I guess my understanding, is that a lot of the robotic arms and AMRs use it. Is that a
Mhm.
correct statement? Where does it fit
Yeah,
in the ecosystem?
yeah. So calling it an operating system is technically incorrect, even though that's what they call themselves. It's a developer suite that essentially exists on Linux. Ubuntu is what I run it on, and then they're one of the newest ROS 2 Jazzy. You can actually get it running on a Raspberry Pi as well, which is kind of what instigated me into creating. Yeah, there you
I
go.
knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm using for sort of the brain or the controls of my little project. But yeah, so calling it an operating system, I guess, would be technically inaccurate, but it's just a developer suite of several tools. As far you have simulation, which is great, and then just the community. The community built, I guess you would say, sort of protocols. So if you need to control, you know, wheels of like with different axes or robotic arm or whatever, there's you can go on the GitHub and find someone that's already developed it, take what they have, sort of tweak it. So it's a quick way to kind of, you know, I wouldn't say quick when you first get started, but once you get into it, it's a quick way to kind of throw a robotics project together. And um, and yeah, the AMRs that do have robotic arms, all the AMRs that I'm aware of that I've looked into, and I don't see why you wouldn't, but all the AMRs that I'm aware of are using ROS, and they're also all using SLAM, which is on the spot. I can't remember the exact acronym, but it's the sort of mapping software that all these AMRs are using. I'm sure they've shown you the sort of lidar layout, and you can see the robots in a virtual space, like a 2D map above, sort of driving around this virtual space. That's all their own like flavor of SLAM that they've put into their own UI. But yeah, so tools like that making those sort of robots nice and simple. And since they're already using ROS to develop those AMRs, I would assume that they would continue just developing in ROS to make the arms that would be attached to the AMRs, make it all flow nicely together. So
Gotcha. It's super interesting. I don't have deep expertise on Ross, but I keep hearing more and more about it. I think it's probably all the investments from the humanoid robotic side. I know that a subsidiary from Google is also, I guess, in the mix.
Hmm.
But I think this is an entirely, we could probably spend a whole like 3 hours talking about
Oh
oh
yeah.
robotics.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's an interesting space. I wouldn't even know if they also work with other robots outside of like purely industrial. I would assume so, but it's interesting that
Oh
there's
yeah.
an entire project. And as far as I understand, it's completely open source, right? So any one of us could go on today, download whatever the latest repo is, and start building out it like a
Yes, sir.
robot, right?
That's correct. Yep, completely open source, so it's completely free. People will develop their own proprietary stuff in it. You'll see that a lot. Obviously, Boston Dynamics does that. But yeah, if something that's interesting, I think if you Google RAW's users list or RAW's client list, you can see the massive list of people that are out there using it, and you might be surprised to see who's all on there. So yeah, it's getting used more and more.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Let me ask you guys, as we are coming close to the end of this, your thought process about starting a systems integration company, not necessarily from Derek and Cy, but from if someone is a technical person, if someone is thinking about starting a systems integration company, can you kind of walk us through some of your thought processes of maybe these are some of the things we need to do, or this is where we're going to start, and kind of try to find a niche into what we're doing, kind of some of those higher level pieces and things that I imagine are going to be fairly top of mind because you guys are fairly early into going back and starting the technical company.
So some high level, like how do you do it essentially?
Yes,
or-
so some high level, either how do you do it, or what were some of the important decisions that you guys made as to, hey, we
Mm,
want to do a lot on robotics, or these are the platforms that we're looking for, or this is where we think we're going to find our first opportunities. Kind of thoughts like that, especially
yeah.
for folks who might not. Who haven't gone to do this, but might be considering starting a company themselves.
I'd say there's some legends out there that have a really good answer to this. I will try to answer it myself. For us, I think the biggest thing is not trying to be everything to everyone. I think a huge factor is understanding who you want to work with, who you're willing not to work with, what's important for you. Because I think ultimately you have to decide like who your target customer is, and you can't just go at it like I will be anything to everyone. Because I think that's just a huge disservice to you and especially your customer. Because I'll admit we're not going to be a fit. We will not be a fit for everyone, and we do have a precise knowing precisely what you want to achieve, who you want to serve. I think cutting that
How do you
up at
figure
the
that
very
out?
beginning. That's a good question, lad. I guess you combine experience, and you understand the persona type that you're willing to work with, and you put those two together, and you sprinkle in a little bit of what do I want to do, or what would I be best for? Who would I be best for to serve? And I think that would be the formula.
Yeah, I think also when you use the term systems integrator, it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. That goes through. It can be anything from just just controls, or mechanical, electrical, and everything. I would say, like, first, make sure that you have the actual experience. Learn the heartaches, learn the lessons the hard way out in the field. What you should do and what you shouldn't do during a project from beginning to end. And then also stay focused on your niche before expanding out. So obviously controls is our thing. If we ever wanted to expand out as a system integrator, it's not that's sometime way down the road, but for us, controls integration, don't try to just do everything all at once, and immediately expand into a panel shop, and just because you don't stretch yourself too thin. Do what build your team, and stick with that.
Yeah.
From the beginning, and then someday maybe expand out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that answer, Vlad. I want to go throw it to you to see if you have any other last questions about this topic for the guys?
Well, look, I certainly have a lot of thoughts on that side. I have, some announcements coming up from my side as
Yeah.
well. I think it's an interesting challenge, right? I think systems integrators, I think the fundamental challenge, right, is in our space at least, is the fact that the work is so custom, right? Because from one customer to the next, it is incredibly difficult to replicate the same, I want to say, integration, the same success. And
Yeah.
so you almost always, and again, I know that many struggle with this. They get stuck at a billable rate versus trying to find a maybe a product that gives them a little bit more leverage, right? So what I mean by that is if you have some kind of a software or hardware or whatever platform that you've built and it costs, I don't know, $2 million, in theory you should be able to take that and here's my next customer. Now your margin of profit on that 2 million is going to be higher because you've already done the work. But I think in integration that is incredibly difficult, I guess, to create. So I'm curious maybe what your guys' thoughts are on finding just billable hours as a systems integrator versus trying to productize versus trying to figure out a way to make it a, I want to say, more sustainable business practice in the long run.
We funny thing you bring that up. We were just talking about this the other day. Whereas like billing, we want to create the opportunity for billable hours. Like if you just want to use us, but that's not really where we want to go to.
Yep.
But we also don't want to just not help or not have that as an availability because we are starting off, of course.
Yep.
But ultimately, I think where it really matters is in that area you were mentioning, Vlad. And for us, I think it's really defining. I think it's really about figuring out how to define your scope extremely well, for the benefit of your customer and yourself, and and ensuring that you're like you said, and this is a big part of what our philosophy is. Not every not every project is the same, and it's insanely tempting to price things based off of, well, we did this last time, or this is just like this, or hey, we're using the same thing, and then to just generalize it, add a couple bit of specifics. But I think the approach is to go by it because of how unique it is. Use that as some kind of touch point, some type of reference, but never skip over the exercise of going line item by line item in the most granular way, which we're doing now, and just sifting through it, hanging out in that space, and I don't know, just making sure you fully understand the project, and developing your your the solution based off that, not even like your customer. I mean, listen to your customer, of course, but making sure you're in charge, that you have enough expertise to educate your customer to provide an actual actionable solution for them. So yeah, I think a big thing is approaching. It sounds so generic, and everyone says turnkey, bespoke to you. That's like the number one thing, but it's so hard to see people actually just having fun, getting into the weeds at the beginning of a project and actually treating it like that. It's a rare.
Oh,
It's not seen much, I'd say. That's necessary.
definitely agree with that. Definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I was going to say, I think that's a lot to think about. And I look forward to having you guys back on at some point in the future and going and kind of continuing the conversation and going from a lot of kind of thoughts and these are good ideas to going and seeing how the first 6 months or a year or whatever it looks like shakes
that'd
out.
be
So
exciting.
I'm excited to commit to bringing you guys back on for that. But before we let you guys go, we want to absolutely go ask you the same ending questions we ask all of our guests. And the first one is, as Vlad likes to say, and as I like to joke, is one of my favorite, because there are seemingly only wrong answers, right? And it's, we want you guys to predict the future. So Derek, Cy and Derek, whichever way we want to go. What do you guys think that the future of, and we'll get really specific, of system integration is going to look like? And I know, Derek, you were touching on some really good and interesting topics there. So I want to give this to you guys as kind of an open opportunity to go throw your thoughts as to what the next, 2, 3, 5 years of systems integration is going to look like.
I think, and I hate to be the cliche guy, but I think it's when hardware catches up and AI catches up with where it needs to be, and when they merge, seeing the type of actual products being released. Because like right now, to be honest, there's no single AI solution, silver bullet, that a company can't just go grab an ERP and then it fixed their company. A company can't just go grab some AI and it just does it for them. They just hit play. There's so much further development in the artificial intelligence space, which is further development software, which is lacking hardware. I mean, look at what Boston Dynamics is trying to do with their Reach robot, trying to unload trucks. Seeing all these solutions, we're seeing this stuff starting to catch up. And I think in the next, and even like, I know a lot of people make fun of humanoids. It's fun too. But in reality, when that hardware really does catch up to proper capabilities of what a humanoid could do, we're going to start to see some very interesting solutions that are not going to look like what it looks like today.
He stole mine. No, outside of what he said, I 100% agree. I think just outside of the industrial space, you're going to see more and more interesting automation projects pop up around. Over the last year, I spent quite a bit of time in Phoenix, for example, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard of those Waymos, but automated taxis, taking those around. That was an absolute trip. Have a ghost driving for you, and steering column moves and everything. It's kind of scary the first time, and then they have AMRs delivering pizza, and then you have restaurants AMRs as waiters and everything like that. So I think you're going to see a lot more automation outside of just the industrial space. So I think as that starts to flood the market, I'm keeping an eye on that and trying to figure out, how to wedge my way into that one as well.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, and what is that? I can't remember which California airport, but they have the X Cafe. I don't know if you've heard about the X robots that they make those specialized for like serving people. They have bartender humanoid almost looking ones, and then they have a barista one in California. So just watching how automation evolves just outside of industrial is kind of what I'm keeping an eye on. You're going to see a lot more of that.
No, I think that is super interesting. I have not been in a Waymo, but I did when I was in San Francisco, and kind of in the Bay Area. I watched them, and I'm not sure if it was weirder to watch the ghost driving, or like 80% of the people were sitting in the passenger seat with their phone out, videotaping the ghost driving. That for me was the scariest part. I gave them wide berth while walking and driving and everything in between. I'm not sure if I like that future, guys. I'm going to be very honest. I'm not sure I like that future. Maybe if we get to the point where the majority of vehicles are able to drive themselves, a la the science fiction, and then we don't have to worry about it, I would feel more comfortable. But man, I wouldn't want to have to go write that report to the insurance company of my driverless vehicle hit another driverless vehicle. Are we just back to no fault again? We might just be back to no fault accidents, which is
maybe it's maybe it'd be the fault of the manufacturer at that point.
That is possible, but man, I'm guessing there is a very high probability that you're signing away any liability they might have in car accidents.
Yeah.
But no, guys, this is awesome. We want to ask for some career advice, and so I want to open it up. I guess we'll ask Cy first because Derek got to steal your last one, so maybe you can like read over his shoulder and steal his this time. That would probably be pretty good. But if someone is looking, especially on the technical side, right, the vast majority of people listening to this are on the technical side. If someone is looking to get into the technical side of automation, of integration, what is the best career advice that you have for them?
Yeah, this might sound pretty cliche, but especially for someone that's just starting out, boots on the ground is what is going to get you that experience. So any opportunity that you have to be a part of a project firsthand, be there during, the installation, the design of it, and everything, it's a lot easier sometimes to stay back in the office, if you're on the control side. But you're really going to learn the most out there, like I was saying earlier, dealing with the heartache, trying to figure out these solutions. Once you make one mistake, that is honestly the best way to learn. And you likely won't make that same mistake, or at least in the exact same way again. So really, boots on the ground. And when you're out there, get your hands on the equipment, on the program, and really get into the troubleshooting aspect of it and learn as much as you can that way.
Absolutely. Derek, that's a really good one to have to go follow up, but we'll ask you the same question. We'll ask you for some career advice, please.
I am really excited about this question. I'm going to steal his actually. So yes, this one's really close to home for me, and I hope I really do value my network, and I hope I hope that this I tell this story a lot, but for me, go do it. Get out there and do it. If you're young in your profession, especially now, if you're taking Solus PLC stuff, if you're learning it, I'm telling you right now, do not set yourself in a position, especially if you're like in your 20s, early, whatever. Don't set yourself in this corner where you think you know everything, or you're in a nice spot. Maybe you're making 120, maybe you're making 115 a year. And some people are built that way. That's fine. My advice might be for the people that are just insanely hungry and ambitious. But I would say,
well, what's the sweet spot? I would rather not 115, 120.
Whatever it may be. But I would say, man, if you're early in your career, don't trade experience for anything. Do not pigeonhole yourself in a company where you're not given projects, you're not given opportunity, you don't have good mentorship, you don't have anything in front of you because you traded it for some type, the most perfect scenario, whether it's not remote, whether it's because you wanted remote, because you wanted it cushy, comfortable, and that includes salary. My opinion is just what Cy said. Put yourself in a position where you can learn as much as possible early in your career, and do not stop. If you have a hiring manager, if you have some kind of obstacle in your way, move to a spot where you're going to develop and continue to grow, because that stuff's going to compound, and you're going to be able to leverage that in 10 years and 5 years and 20 years versus being the guy that was good at AutoCAD that helped sales guys out.
Yeah, not getting pigeonholed. Don't let that happen to you. That's a big one for sure. Experience as much of the process as you absolutely can.
Absolutely. I think experience is very important. And as we had Daniel in the comments talking about how failure is absolutely the best teacher to those points. And I agree with Cy's comment of hopefully you don't make the exact same mistake again. I would agree. Most of the time, people don't get upset at you too badly if you make the mistake the first time. Around the fifth time you've made the same mistake, that's maybe when we have to have some questions. So that is good. Thank you both for that. Next up, we'd like to ask for a book and or content recommendation. Derek, we want to go throw it to you first this time.
First of all, I made a LinkedIn post about it a few days ago. If you're watching this, I hope you're subscribed to the Manufacturing Hub, that you know about Solus PLC. I cannot recommend anything greater to immerse yourself in what's going on. If you look at the conversations they're having with people all the time, make sure you go and subscribe to them. Go hunt down and find the Solus PLC channel on YouTube, the Manufacturing Hub on YouTube. Ring the bell. Make sure you're getting all the notifications. And when you're driving, when you're doing something, listen, consume. They've got great guests. They have great conversations. Second, I would say from a leadership perspective, Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership. I take a lot of weight in that. That changed the way I looked at ownership. And that taught me a lot. For sales, anything Alex Hermosi is putting out is he's not a TikTok fanatic or whatever. He's not some trash advice. His the advice he gives and the book, I think he's got 2 books now, are insanely valuable, especially if you're new to sales. And then Dan
I didn't know
Go.
he had books. I didn't know that he had books as well. Interesting. I watched a lot of his YouTube content, but
He has 2, and I cannot think. I think the first book is called "Make a Deal So." Man, I'm gonna feel so stupid. I forget the title of the book, but it's something like "Make a Deal So Great That They'd Be Stupid to Say No" or something like that. I don't know. And he just released a second one. I'm sorry, Alex, if you're watching now. And then Dan Go. As far as health and fitness, especially if you work remote, trying to balance that, I think he's been a great help. He's got great LinkedIn content as well. I've really enjoyed.
How do you spell that? Dan, D-A-N, Go?
DANGO. And I can send it to you after, but he's great to have in your feed because he keeps you, the physical stuff in check, the mental stuff in check. It's great seeing his stuff come across. I've enjoyed that.
Awesome. Thank you for all of those. We will try and include them in the show notes for the podcast if you're listening.
Absolutely. No, those are fantastic. Sai, did you have any other recommendations? Did you have any other recommendations for us today?
Yeah. So we kind of touched on ROS and ROS development. For anyone looking to get into it, the best resource I've found, obviously outside of the community, utilize the community resources as much as you can, the forums, the GitHub conversations and everything. But if you're really trying to get in on the ground level into ROS development, there's a YouTube channel called Articulated Robotics. And he deserves way more subscribers. So if you have any desire at all, he takes you from nothing, from installing ROS to up to driving your own robot around and letting it carry out missions autonomously. So I highly recommend that channel for anyone looking to go that direction.
Dave,
That's
are you
awesome.
gonna build your own robot?
Nope. I'm gonna once again piggyback on your hard work, Vlad. Once again, planning to piggyback on your hard work. I hear you've got plenty of time to go watch some YouTube videos and maybe make some more YouTube videos in the coming future. But no, awesome. Derek's side, that was great. Vlad, I would say, you know how Derek really pushed Manufacturing Hub really hard? Maybe we could just tape record that and you could fall asleep thinking to that. And then you could wake up and then that's just the pitch. That is just the pitch. But no, I do want to make sure to thank Derek for that. Last question to you guys, to Derek or Sire, whoever wants to go first, is how can our listeners help? Who should reach out? Who do you want to connect with? How can the community support you guys and what you're doing with Seekers Technical?
Yeah, we have 2 customers in mind: the end user, the owner, like the facility owners, and bigger systems integrating firms. We want to fill up our schedule for this year and next. We want to So if you know anyone, word of mouth, if you know anyone, or if you know of any opportunity where you think we might be a good fit for them, we would love to help them, to serve and figure out a solution for them, or see how we can help.
Absolutely.
And small systems integrators too. Don't be afraid to reach out to us.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely willing to help
Absolutely.
you guys out as well.
Oh, absolutely. No, Cy, Derek, guys, this has been awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I look forward to bringing you back on, talking about how 2024 ended and how 2025 is going for the next conversation that we get to have with you guys, which should be super fun. If you guys have made it this far, everyone, thank you for hanging out. We had a bunch of fun folks in the comments chatting amongst themselves, talking about how Waymos are awesome. All of those great things. Having said that, if you're not connected with Derek and Cy, please make sure you go ahead and do so. Derek is connected, and I think Seekers Technical is connected on the LinkedIn event. We'll make sure, if you're listening in podcast form or otherwise, that we've got the contact information in the show notes. While you're doing that, make sure you're following along Manufacturing Hub. Make sure you're connected or following Vlad and myself. If you guys have made it this far in podcast form, you are awesome. If you made it this far in video form, you're also awesome. And just a reminder, Monday we'll have a stream coming back from ICC. And on Wednesday of next week, we're off live. But if you guys are listening in podcast form, there will be no interruption in that schedule. So I will say again,